Hello everybody, here is another tier list video with your magnanimous host, me, Anti-Wave. So now, I'm trying to space out these tier list videos. I don't want to bombard everyone with so much. So I'm going to tackle a game mode in Halo Wars 1 today. My second favorite game mode, and sometimes I like it even more than standard, that is Deathmatch. So I'm going to be ignoring the maps in general. If you don't know what Deathmatch is, either you haven't dabbled in other game modes, and that's why you got bored so fast, or you never cared to play it. Deathmatch basically is, you get all your upgrades right out the gate, and 15,000 resources, and the catch is, you start with 15 population, and for every base you take, you gain 10 population. So Covenant in general has a distinct advantage over UNSC, because when you build the starting base for a Covenant is at Citadel, and technically speaking the UNSC gets Fortress, but the problem is that the UNSC base requires buildings to get stronger, whereas the Covenant base gets stronger for each level, so Outpost, Keep, Citadel. So basically a building Citadel is as strong as a UNSC base with like 3 buildings or something, or whatever. I know that doesn't scale, but basically it's stronger than a fortress, because a fortress with no buildings might as well be a fire base, is what I'm saying. So with that in mind, the Covenant leaders might be ranked higher on average compared to UNSC. And this game really does flip a lot of things on its head. So the previous tier list videos where you saw Reno rank his, like when Reno had his take on what the tanks would be, and Dishonored and Casual Red, this is going to be very different. So you're probably going to be like, why, or what the hell? But I will explain. So I'm going to start with the leaders, and then the units in no particular order this time. I'll just randomly pick. So the leaders will be in sequential order, starting with Cutter. This is a tough one for me. I think Cutter in Deathmatch will fall between high A to low S, because you're having ODSTs right out the gate, and that is very annoying when trying to attack other UNSC. However, on average, people who know or really play Deathmatch are going to pick Covenant more than they pick UNSC. So I would have to say, to like round it out, I'll put Cutter in high A, very high A. His Magic Blast is very annoying against UNSC and can do some damage against Covenant. And ODSTs are gonna be what boosts him up, of course. Anders is another tough one. She does not go into S because of the Covenant, and you'll see why very soon. So yeah, like, okay, in Standard, it's a big problem. It's a big problem. But however, when you're at 15 population, I mean, Anders can work. She's very high if everybody is all UNSC. So your team and the enemy team is all UNSC. It can work out. So I'm not too sure. But Anders is definitely A because of her Cryo Bomb and her Gremlins. And her Hawks also instantly, which nullifies Cutter's air. Because when you're in Deathmatch, everyone gets their upgrades. So Forge gets Grizzly immediately, Anders gets Hawks immediately, Cutter gets OT immediately. And because of that, Anders' air is pretty good even against vampires, because it's not enough vampires to stop the Hawks early on. Because even, say that there's 3 players, the average population you're all going to get is around 30 pop, which isn't really a lot. So that's like about 15 Hawks if you just maxed out, which you're not going to do. And the play, I must say, that I keep forgetting, is that it's better to make Spartans in general. The play is to make Spartans and have them run around and try to hijack the enemy's population to add them onto yours. So I'd say Anders and Cutter will be tied theoretically. Maybe Anders gets a slight edge above Cutter, but that's not saying too much. Now Forge, unfortunately, in Deathmatch falls to C, arguably D tier, because we all know that Grizzlies are terrible. So picking Forge, either picking Forge or getting Forge from a random all or random UNSC in Deathmatch is not going to work in your favor. And the Carpet Bomb is very shitty. It's not doing anything to a Covenant base with one shield on it. And you're at best killing ODSTs that'll come back in 2 seconds. And the fact is, okay, well, Forge has heavy supply pad. Guess what? Everybody gets a heavy supply pad because Deathmatch forces all upgrades immediately. And of course, before someone says in the comment section, yes, you don't start out with a quad Mac Blast, maximum cryo right away because there's a cooldown. And when that cooldown is complete, then you get access to your leader power. So that includes the Prophet's Cleansing Beam, the Arbiter's Rage, Chieftain's Vortex. They're all on a cooldown until it says leader power is fully activated or upgraded or something like that. But I don't know. Forge, I think I'll put Forge in the D tier for Deathmatch. I just think because what can he do? The Cyclops can't do anything. Yeah, I don't think Forge isn't even valuable in Deathmatch. He's just really not, because Anders and Cutter already have heavy supply pad. Grizzly is absolute shit, and the messed up part is you're forced to make Grizzly because it's a forced upgrade. There's nothing that you can really do. There's no need for Forge in Deathmatch. I want to say he's E. You know what? Fuck it. I'll put Forge in E. There's literally no reason to have Forge in a Deathmatch. There's no reason to have Forge in Deathmatch. Now, maybe, okay, theoretically, no, I keep flip-flopping. I think Forge will go in D because there's a Covenant on the enemy team. Man, hold on 1 second, I'm just replay the music real quick because I don't want the mic to go out, the audio. So, excuse me. So, yeah, Forge might have some use against Covenant, but overall, he's just not. It's just like there have been many games where I had a teammate who was Forge in Deathmatch, and 95% of the time, if I had a Forge, I lose. My team loses. And if they're on the enemy team, I have a high chance of winning because it's a Carpet Bomb. Nobody cares about that, especially when it's forced upgrades already. So Forge will not go in the E tier because if there's a Covenant, then Grizzlies are okay against Wraiths, I guess, maybe, but that's not even true either. We'll get to that later. So, the very best, the ultimate best, that's redundant, in Deathmatch is the Prophet. Zero question. You can just go Temple first. You go Temple, Factory, and then the rest is up to you. Obviously, you have to build in your base, but Temple, Factory. When you're at Temple, Prophet is the fastest unit in the game next to Gosshogs in terms of Deathmatch. I don't know how else to put it. Because the Prophet can just, the whole point of is the Prophet's utility. He's the only flying unit immediately until someone makes an air pad, which takes 45 seconds or a summit to build just to get the Prophet. And normally, if there's UNSC, if there's 2 or more UNSC on the enemy team, consider it game because they have to go all Wolverines just to scare the Prophet away. And by the time the Prophet shows up, he can drop off 3 units that will be discussed very shortly. The Prophet is very good and very annoying, and he'll just come back. Arbiter, I would have to put him in the A tier. He could definitely do a lot, and if there's any arguments for him being an S, I don't mind, but the Arbiter is very solid to pick. You know, he's Ghastly Vision also, so you know what? I'll put him in front of the UNSC because the Covenant is just outright superior in Deathmatch on average. And I will expand on that more when we get to a certain unit. And honestly, I'll get to it right after the Chieftain then. Oh yeah, also, yeah, let me add another tier. Excuse me, let me add another tier real quick. Add a row above. We're gonna call this Above God. because, like, I'm dead ass. I'm dead ass with this. The Prophet in all UNSC, I should say enemy team all UNSC. Should the enemy team be all UNSC, the Prophet is above God, and he is uncontested. So that parameter, it's very annoying. Because if there's no vampires to stop a Prophet, then a Prophet is basically untouched, and you cannot fuck with him at all. Give up. So now, the Brute Chieftain, I would say he's possibly high A, low S. I'll put him in front of the Arbiter, because at least, again, he can stun a vehicle, and because the population pool on average is lower, stunning one tank is a lot more threatening than, you know, having 45 population or higher. When you're like in that 25, 35 population range, a Chieftain is extremely fucking annoying to deal with. I'd say about tied or slightly above the Arbiter. So now, let me get into the reason why the Covenant excels. If you watch my veterancy video, I talk about this unit in particular, not the Scorpion tank, but the Covenant version of it. Wraith is the ultimate unit to make in Deathmatch. Why is that? Well, for some odd reason, let's just use the extreme case. Normally, you can only get about 13 stars on a Wraith in Standard. In any other game mode excluding Deathmatch, you get about 13 stars. Of course, someone will talk about how, you can get higher stars, but that's with the use of an AI. You have to get the AI to maximum stars on the Wraith, then you have to get Rebel Leader. It's too many parameters, so yes, you can get a 16 star, 17 star Wraith, whatever, but that's not, we're talking about multiplayer. And most people leave, unless it's your friends, when there's an AI on their team. So, not counting that. But I do acknowledge its existence, so just want to put that out there. For some reason, the Wraith shield is +2 higher in Deathmatch. We don't know why. Reno and I have tried to understand this because we were under the assumption that getting Foreigner's shield increases the shield number, but that's not true at all. For some strange reason, maybe someone can explain, but on average, the Wraith shield number is a 3, and if you watch my veterancy video, basically the shield number is also veterancy in of itself. So, it's at a 0 with nothing, then it's a 1 with heavy shield, 2 with Scourge, 3 plasma modulator, yada yada yada. But for some reason in Deathmatch, that shield number goes from a 3 to a 5. And we know something about veterancy is, on average, it's some increase. I forgot the numbers right now, but my veterancy video, you guys will know if you pay attention or care about this. Anyway, that +2 makes the Wraith stronger than the Scorpion and Grizzly in Deathmatch. Wraiths are very durable, and their Scourge does more damage because of the +2. And that is the reason why the Covenant by themselves, whether it's an Arbiter to a Prophet, they are overall, unit to unit, just better than the UNSC. The play in Deathmatch is you make a Covenant, you get a Covenant, preferably a Prophet, and you make Wraiths. And this is what makes the Prophet so good. You go Temple first, you blow up the Temple after the Prophet is made, you make the factory, and then you drop off a Wraith, and if you can, I'll adjust another unit later, but you drop off a Wraith and watch it go to town. So for the UNSC to try to counter that, you want to create Spartans to try to hijack the Wraiths. And a Spartan Wraith is superior to a Spartan power turret tank. And even a Spartan fucking Grizzly, believe it or not. And that +1 star is a lot for a Wraith. So, Wraiths are the undisputed champion in Deathmatch. There's no one else who could tell me otherwise. It's all about how you use it anyway. So now, on to, I mentioned the Spartans, so let's talk about them real quick. Spartans definitely go in the S tier because number one, the population cap is lower, technically speaking, early on. And if you hijack a Wraith or another vehicle, you could turn the tide of battle because you're walking around with like 10 units. So 3 Spartans, that's -3. So the enemy has 7 units on the field. Spartans are very good. And kind of it's funny because in standard, if you pay attention to the AI, they never take their own vehicles. They always have their Spartans out to take yours. And more or less, the players adopt that ideology in Deathmatch. And Spartans are an active threat. And if they take a Wraith, GG. Basically, it's really annoying to kill them. So, Scorpions. They go in A tier. They're no longer S tier. They're S tier in Standard. But they're A tier in Deathmatch. They do their job. And on average, if you're Carter or Anders, you're going to need to pick those two to make it. Scorpions are solid. I have nothing to really say. Marines, there's no fucking point. If you're making Marines, you're throwing the game. I don't care what you say. They're not ODSTs. They really fall flat. I think Marines go in E tier for deathmatch purposes. Elite Grunts, they're also just terrible. I don't want to hear anything about it. Suicide Grunts can kind of work. They can do a lot of damage. However, you're very okay. Suicide Grunts have to be made from the base of the Covenant base, and they're only effective when you're pumping them from multiple bases. So theoretically, if you're at 45 pop, that means you have 4 bases. You pump 4 Suicide Grunts at a time. They're good against UNSC, but against Covenant, not so much because the base is just busted like that. They're good against buildings, but you need to kill the Covenant base first. They're not UNSC, so they're good against UNSC. And they're like okay at best against Covenant. They have some use. I'm debating putting them in C tier because the amount of population you're wasting making Suicide Grunts, you can just make Wraiths. So I think I'll put the Suicide Grunt in C tier. Hornets. I don't know. They're even with Shaft Pod, they do something, but I don't know. They blow up to Hawks, get cucked by vampires, die to ODSTs, and you need 4 bases to really make use of them. So I don't really know. They get cucked by an Arbiter, they get cucked by a Prophet. So I think Hornets in Deathmatch go in D tier. So onto the Grizzly. The Grizzly by itself, unfortunately, would have to fall in D tier because, again, Grizzlies are terrible damage-wise in terms of their canister shell. They have more health than a Scorpion, but when you're fighting Wraiths, all you have is health on your side. And again, when I have a Forge or the enemy team has a Forge, I rarely lose or win with Forge on my team or up against the enemy. So they go in D tier. Not too much to really explain. Gauss Hogs, what was once an S tier unit in Standard, surprisingly goes from S to like a B, maybe an A. I want to hear your argument for this. Anyone who has an argument for them being S, I want to see that. I genuinely do not see it. Because you would assume they'd be good. But surprisingly, like, once you get... Okay, if the UNSC gets 2... Like, I mean, hell, even a Grizzly can take it out. If you got 3 tanks on the field, the Gauss is worthless. A Wraith will just solo 10 Gauss by itself. They're not doing shit. they have their purpose in like the first 2 minutes. But again, remember, you don't get access to reserves until it says leader power is fully upgraded. They have their uses within like the first 2 minutes of the game, because if it's a 3v3 map, like, you can use the Gauss right away to get rid of a rebel base. That's cool, but after that, they're not doing much, because you can literally make large turret right out the gate, and a large vehicle turret will destroy Gauss very easily. So I'm considering putting them in C tier in front of the Suicide Grunt for usefulness. They can do something, but you can't. I don't know. I've never seen Gauss, and good players try to make Gauss, and they don't understand that this is not standard. We have all our upgrades immediately, and it still takes time to make the Gauss from the base. And to effectively make Gauss, you need to have at least 3 bases, but at that point, you're already pumping power turret, Hawks. You have a maximum upgrade Arbiter or Chieftain. The Gauss Hogs have no reason being there. Now the Grizzly against All Covenant, it goes from a D to maybe a C. Maybe a C. So, an All Covenant enemy team, you're likely up against someone who picked a Prophet or got Prophet off a random all. A Chieftain can still do his work, and you're not really making Hunters. You're making them, you might, but Wraiths are just so damn good in Deathmatch. I have some games on YouTube that you can go check out where they do their job. So, a Grizzly can do something, but against All Covenant, but it falls flat to Wraiths and maximum upgraded Covenant leaders, because Forge is just bad in Deathmatch. Very bad. I'm sorry, y'all. Let's see. A Scarab. Let's just do that. Scarab by itself, I think, has more usefulness than a damn Grizzly. I think it has more usefulness. However, you are putting yourself at risk. Because, yeah, it's good, but a Scarab is already, what is it? It's already 1/5 of your resource cost. Yeah, I think it's 1/5 of your resource cost. So, first of all, the downside of the Scarab is you need 2 bases. You can't just make it. You need 2 bases. So that takes time. And in that time frame, enemy Covenant could have Wraiths on your base. You could get attacked by Hawks from Enders. You could get bum rushed by ODSTs from Cutter. And a Scarab needs Engineers. So you know what? I'll put it below these guys. No, you know what? No, it's in my mind. The Scarab will have to go in D tier, but the top of D tier. I think, and especially if it's not on a map like Glacial or Frozen Valley, then I would dare say it goes to E, but no, it can still do something if it's attacking a base. And if you're in musical bases, a Scarab is very annoying to deal with, and if you're not in the right position to handle it. A Ghost is a inferior, even fully upgraded, it's not touching a Gauss Hog, even though it can dodge. I'll put it in front of the Marine, or no, I'll put it in between. A Chopper, it's just not a Gauss Hog, it's going to go in E tier. No reason to freaking explain. Nope, sorry. Vultures, surprisingly, I would say potentially C tier. Potentially C tier. No, don't be a fool, anti-wave. Put this in D tier. They can do damage, but if there's 2 Covenant on the enemy team, that's not a lot. And there's 6 population, so if you make 2, you're already maximum pop. In that time frame, making 2 Vultures, first of all, you have to make 1 to 2 air pads, so that's 1 minute and 30 seconds of waiting for the air pads to build if you want to double pump Vultures. And by then, yeah, in that time frame, if the enemy has 50 population over you, you're not going to do much with the Vultures. It's just not going to work. I don't see it, man. I don't see it. Alright, and Brute Grunts. Arguably more useful than the Marine Squad. So, still E, because you're not doing much with them. You're better off making a Wraith and Air. Speaking of Air, Hawk will have to go in the A tier, above a Scorpion. Because even though you're waiting 45 seconds to make that air pad, Hawks are very decent. Again, they can counter Wolverines quite well, and can counter vampires until they get hit with a stasis. They do their job, and they're very annoying to deal with. And the Hawk by itself outclassed the Vulture, and outclassed the Grizzly, and outclassed the Hornet on many situations in Deathmatch, and even Standard, just for our reference. So it's more viable to make a Hawk as Anders in Deathmatch than a stupid Vulture. You never want to do that. Now, if you are on Glacial Ravine, what the fuck are you doing making a Sentinel? And what the fuck are you doing making a Super Sentinel? Too slow, too fat, and they're tinfoil. Literally, you have maximum upgrades at the 0-second mark. What are you doing making these things? A Goshawk could just look at it and blow it up. A Ghost can even blow it up. A Chopper can blow it up in the 10-second mark of the game. Not happening, buddy. I'm sorry, pal. Nope. Nope. Brute Squads. Probably the first B tier unit. Because the only reason why they're not higher is because you need more than 2 bases to make use of them. Because you want a triple pump to get enough brutes effectively. Because if you're trying to train 15 brutes for 1 base, everyone else is making vehicles or air vehicles or something that can just eviscerate a brute squad. Even though if you get enough of them, they can stun the tank pretty well. And if you happen to get 55 population, which is 5 bases, 55 brutes are actually pretty deadly. And I think they could do something to Wraiths, but don't count on that. But their usefulness and utility surpasses the Brute Grunts, Marines, and Elite Grunts, because at least they can stun briefly, which can mess with a veteranized tank. Cliff Scarab, I'll put that in C tier, because by the time you create a Scarab on Glacial, and if you get any type of stronghold or foothold on the enemy team's base area, like even just one, you're definitely more likely going to win, because a Cliff, you can just run away. However, of course, you know, if you're up against Anders or a Cutter, that can change, but a Cliff Scarab's utility is above the bad boys below and this. I'm more than open for you changing my mind for the Cliff Scarab, but that's my understanding. Because again, you still have to wait 2 minutes for this, or a minute or something, for the Scarab to be built, something like that. And in that minute, a Prophet can fly over, an Arbiter can come over, UNSC could bum rush you, Forge could do something to you even. But its utility on Frozen Valley and especially Glacial, I think it deserves to be in C tier. Engineers, they go from being S tier in general for turtling and A tier in standard to like maybe a high B, low A, because you know, they take up population, and unless your teammate goes Scarabs and you're devoted yourself to engineers, you don't want to make too much of them. You really don't. Unfortunately, you don't want to, as useful as they are, but they have their uses. Engineer will go in B tier, because if you make too much, you can't do anything but be support. And the more, if you let your enemy get 4 bases and more, you're more likely going to lose, because your population is just getting lower and lower. Because if you lose a base, it's not like you know, oh, I'm fine. No, if you lose a base, that's 10 population you're losing, and you're giving your enemy 10 population. which can stack up against you. Flamethrowers, I have nothing to say. Honor guards, I have nothing to say. Gremlins, they go from being S tier to me in standard to A tier. Maybe high A tier. They do their job, but like, yeah, they can stun the Wraiths, but if you have an Arbiter, a Prophet, and God forbid a Prophet, Gremlins can't do anything to you anyway. They can't do anything to infantry, let alone maximum upgraded Covenant leaders. So you would have to balance trying to make Gremlins, and again, Gremlins have to be built from the main base, which means you need at least 2 bases to effectively make them in a ratio. So like about 2 to 3 Gremlins should be okay. That can stun an entire vehicle army, considering the enemy's population will be about 30. So that's not a lot. It's not, considering. And if you're being very aggressive, you're attacking someone with 25 population, I think 3 Gremlins can stun an entire vehicle army. 3 to 4 Gremlins. But you're risking being taken over, you know, like, because again, they're going against vehicles, and yeah, they can stun turrets, but they get blown up in one hit. You have to train them and send them back over, which can work against you. And for that, Gremlins in an all UNSC game, which means your team and the enemy team are UNSC, or the enemy team is all UNSC. They can be high A tier, I think, but not S tier, not necessarily in Deathmatch, because there's so many things that can just blow up a Gremlin in one hit. I.e., if there's an enemy cutter, he has ODST immediately. There's not much that you could be doing, so it's a risk. I'm not sure. If you say that it's B tier, I wouldn't entirely disagree, but I think if the enemy team is all UNSC, then having Gremlins can change everything, especially if the enemy team is a cutter, or, you know what, no, I don't even know. Maybe I should rank the Gremlins lower, because you're going to have OST immediately, and nobody, you know what, considering nobody's picking Forge in Deathmatch unless they get it from random all, it's either a cutter or Anders. I'll just have to put the Gremlins down to B, both of them. Forgive me for how I sound, I had a bit of a cold earlier, so I don't know why I didn't say that earlier. My bad. So, we're almost done. Banshee. What was once a S tier unit in standard goes down many levels. Probably high B, top of B. They're fast, they get the job done, but when the enemy has access to dual launcher Wolverines immediately, and a cryo bomb, a quad mag blast, a fully upgraded arbiter, you're kind of wasting your time. But they're good against UNSC, not against Covenant. There's no reason to make it against Covenant. I don't think so. Not unless you have 65 population or something, which is 6 bases. I don't see it. ODST belongs in the A tier. They shut down Gremlins. They can disrupt you from trying to get a base. And they're annoying in UNSC, against UNSC. Not so annoying as Covenant, you can just farm them because it's not enough. You're going to need at least 40. You need 4 bases if you want to have a spare pop of 10 ODSTs. Because if you have, let's say, you know, leader power is fully upgraded, your OST drop is ready. I'm pausing because I'm just trying to think about a scenario. You drop 10 ODSTs, you have 5 population left. That's only a Scorpion tank and a Wolverine. And you're possibly up against Wraiths, which can eviscerate all of that. And it takes a lot of ODSTs just to get the shield of the Wraith to half health, or half shield, excuse me. But they're a menace. They shut down Gremlins, and basically damn near every other infantry, unless you're able to make Jackals. But even then, the time spent trying to make all these other units The Scorpion tanks, the Hawks, the Wraiths are what you want to build, regardless of the scenario, because they're just too versatile. Wolverine. I'll put that in A tier as well, because they're the only valid defense against a Prophet, and a valid defense against Hawks, and Engineers. They're valid. You make like 2 to 3, and a Prophet has to be mindful. Not too much to really say. So, yeah. A Locust, we'll have to put in C tier. Potentially. Because you can combo them with Wraiths, and they can get the job done. But of course, they blow up quite easily because everybody's max upgraded. So that's why I put the Locust in C tier. Concrete Dean, again, for those who can't remember, just means the enemy has the concrete side of Fort Dean, and it's based by the watchtower. Very evil. Probably more utility than a Cliff Scarab, because it's already a Tech 3 Locust, which means a UNSC base is just dying that much harder, even the Covenant base, if you get enough of them. So that's pretty evil. But again, very niche. And if you lose that Locust, if it gets hijacked or whatever, you're also in trouble in terms of your base. Cobras. Comboing them with Engineers, they be B, but Cobras by themselves, you're not really making those, but you can make some use out of it. I'll put them at the bottom of C tier, because Cobras are slow, and in Deathmatch, you want speed. You want a tank running around, you want Hawks running around, you want Wraiths everywhere, and yeah. Because even if you make like 20 Gauss, that's blowing up some stupid Cobras. But they can get the job done. Elephant. D tier. Because, of course, it's under Cutter, and Cutter's the only one who can make it. At least it's ceramic armor with defense turret. You can pump a lot of ODSTs, and there is some use out of that. But unlikely, and the enemy has to be unaware, and it'll probably work, and it'll only work if you have a higher population by like plus 20 over the enemy to really overwhelm them. That's just me. Vulcan. If you're trying to turtle in Deathmatch, I mean, yeah, I don't really know. The Vulcan is not going to work too well in Deathmatch. Like, yes, it can one-shot basically any ground unit. Cool. But you have to set it up, and I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. Utility-wise is S. I'm going to have to make the Vulcan, a regular Vulcan, a B tier unit, because I've never tried to turtle in Deathmatch before. Still haven't done it, so I don't know. I'll just throw it in B tier because it can one-shot even the Wraiths, or at least two-shot them. So that's something. But you have to stay in your area. And I don't know if you can truly lab 50 population. And what if they cycle population? What if they all get 60 population? I don't know. Jackals, they at least one-shot the infantry below. So, D tier, I guess. And they can do something to a Prophet, but the Prophet, with his maximum cleansing, can just, I don't know, despawn the Jackals. Hunters. Some use, C tier. They can do something against UNSC more so than Covenant. They're a threat, but I'm thinking like they can't hit air, so you have to complement them with something, but they get their job done. Definitely more than a Locust and Cobra. Not as much as a Scarab though. Cyclops, LOL, I am not going to say anything about that. Vampire, solid anti-air unit, and you want to make one when up against a Prophet, even if you're all Covenant, just to at least stun the guy and make him run away. They definitely, it has more use than, I think a Vampire would have as much use as a Gremlin, so maybe they're tied or something, maybe slightly in front. And lastly, the Elo Vulcan. Again, Alpha is 2 pop. You make like 5 Cobras. That's cool and all. But trying to throw on Deathmatch is going to be very weird. Very, very freaking weird. I don't know. I really don't know how it's going to work. I got to try and get some friends of mine to try and throw on Deathmatch. We got to try it. I don't know. Maybe like in front of the Cobra, Vulcan, no Vulcan. So that's what I would say. I hope this video isn't too long. Not as long as that 2-hour video. My bad, guys. So that's my rank, all the units and leaders in Deathmatch. Leave a comment, please, if you know, in general. I hope you liked the video. Comment and subscribe. The next video will be on reinforcements. So that's that. A2 Wave.